pictures. So thankfully, they're working on, this is kind of a huge intellectual property that tackles various transmedia outlets, and I'm tackling the novel series, and I'm thrilled to, I'm humbled to. And what's also awesome about it is that they haven't given me hard deadlines. They've only given me soft deadlines, so I can juggle in, other deadlines as I continue to work on the trilogy. So I do juggle, but I do focus at intervals, like usually 2 weeks to 1 month intervals.
Mm-hmm. Can you talk about what this trilogy is going to be, or is it all still hush hush?
It's a little bit hush hush, but I can talk a little bit about it now. I'm pretty excited. The project name is Project Nitron, and it was announced at the San Diego Comic-Con, and very little was announced. Basically, kind of alluding to that this is obviously one of Stan Lee's last intellectual properties, brand new original intellectual property. So, what's really exciting that I'm so happy to share with all of you is that it's not, something we know from him. It's not, Spider-Man. It's not things that you hear and you see and you think of Stan Lee. It's totally new and original. And what's more is that it's going to take a lore, a genre that is very, that we all love, and kind of turn it on its head and bend some of the rules to what we're used to seeing with these iconic characters, so to speak. So it's science fiction, but it's set. So I can share a little bit. It's set a little bit into the future. Still, obviously, America is America and humans are humans, but there's some craziness that hits the world, and it's cool. Craziness. It's going to bend. Yeah, it's going to bend what we always thought, was going to stay solid with iconic things like, the Grimm's brothers tales, werewolves, vampires, fairies, like that kind of a thing. I'm not going to say specifically, but picture those kind of things, but then bent in a way that you didn't think they could bend. Does that make sense?
No, it sounds fantastic. I'm already in. So does this involve superheroes as someone might imagine it would?
In a way, but not in a way that we've seen. So it's not on the human side, but in a way, we can use what we have in real life to empower us, if I could say that. And again, what's cool too is that imagine Hunger Games, right? Like you read the books, you watch the films, very cool that you could experience the books and then experience the films, but it's the same story, right? You're reading it and you're seeing it. And what's awesome about Project Nitron is that you're going to be able to read this trilogy, these novels that have all these different characters, right? And you might fall in love with a side character that you see spontaneously here and there. But because Stan Lee and Benaroya never imagined this to be where you take the novels and just turn them into the movie, what's so cool is that you will see this side character that you fell in love with here in the novel as a main character at a different part of his or her life in the movie. So you're not watching the same thing you read. Oh, Bill, I'm so thrilled.
I can tell. I can't wait.
Do we have compare, right? You can't go, oh, this part of the book was changed and this, because it is the same world. It is the same intellectual property, but it's a different part of the timeline in the person's life.
Is there a release date or time when we think we might be seeing some of this?
They will announce released. Well, I'm not sure if it'll be the release dates, but the estimates at the next San Diego Comic-Con.
Cool. What? Summer?
I know,
Summer 2019?
But if you think about it, it's only 6 months away.
All right. One of the things I think is most unique about your career, Genese, is that you've done work that I think originated with you, like your novels, like The Holder's Dominion, and also projects on commission or projects that originated with others, like the project you just talked about.
Right.
So how does that different? How do they differ in your mind or in your creative energy?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I'm glad you asked that, because it is a very different. You have to kind of reset your mind in a way. So Holder's Dominion was my own idea. I wanted to spotlight a woman who goes head to head with a hacker. I really loved the idea of taking the video games that I played back in 2002, like Final Fantasy XI, and then a few years later, World of Warcraft. And I wanted to identify and take the gems that happen in those video games when you play with people from all over the world. And I wanted to amplify those and spotlight those and make it like a thriller right at the same time, where I'm highlighting both the good and the bad. And so Holders, I had this fire, like I talked about at the beginning of this conversation, where this calling, where I knew I needed to spotlight a woman in tech and spotlight video games in a way that hadn't been done before. So I had all college age characters. I had the novel go in and out of the video game world when she's playing, when Kaylee Ames is playing the game, and then I have her in her real life in other chapters. So I was able to take personal experience, which we have to write, everything that we as writers write is somewhat from personal experience, but I was able to really take things that had happened in my life, violent things and hurtful things and traumatic things, and I was able to heal through writing Holder's Dominion and really put all of my fears in villains like the hacker known as the Holder. I could really personify people that have manipulated me in real life and hurt me and betrayed or staggeringly so brought me to my knees, so to speak, and broke me, so to speak. And so I was able to heal in a way, writing Holder's Dominion, and really pour my own agenda into it. And even when I was offered a lucrative deal for Holder's Dominion from a traditional publishing house, I had to turn it down because they wanted me to change Kaylee, my heroine, to Ken, to a male. And that could be a whole other podcast. We could get into, male and female heroes and all the differences there. But the point is that because it was my property, my intellectual property, my idea, and it was something that was really calling to me, I had to keep her a woman. I had to decline and go another route. And it all worked out, right? Because Holder's Dominion is here, and Adam Simon's a screenwriter that wants to make it a movie. And I'm so proud of that book. And I'm so proud of sticking to my guns, even though I thought it was career suicide at the time. No,
that would have been a completely different and I think far less interesting book.
Thank you.
So good for you. You talk about how you poured fears and anxieties into this book, but it also sounds like there's a lot of things you love, like the gaming.
Exactly. And then the other chapters, I was able to extrapolate and come up with quests and game design. So I was actually a game developer in a way in a novel, where I was able to take things that I played and then make them 10 times more difficult or interesting, to kind of change raids. Like if you're a gamer, you'll know the word raid, where you raid with 40 other people or something. And I was able to change a raid encounter to something that doesn't exist yet in video games, but something I think we're on the cusp of inventing and being able to do in video games. So that was also fun, is being able to play with what I wish we had now in video games and what I love about video games into the intricacies of Holder's Dominion. But so what's so different about Project Nitron is that here I have, producers and bosses in Hollywood that are telling me, okay, here is the outlying vision of Nitron. Here are where the novels fall. Here is the scope. We want it to be from multiple characters' point of view. You can decide who those characters are. You can decide their genders. You can decide their ages, but this is how many we want. And this is what we want to happen with them. So see, right there is kind of cool, because I'm given a parameter. I can only have, I think, the first book I think has 5 main characters' perspectives. So they're like, okay, we want a perspective from the military side. We want a perspective from the surprise villainy side that I can't disclose yet. And we want you to do this, this, and this. So I was able to go, okay, personally, I really want to highlight a culture like Laotian. So I created a main character that was Laotian, and I was able to pour in the things that I admire all about their traditions and everything that their upbringing entails. But at the same time, there were times where I was blocked because I'm like, oh, I can't have her do X, Y, or Z because I still have to stay within the vision. So there's freedom and there's restriction in it, which is good and bad, right?
Right. Talking about video games, you've worked on a video game, right? Omen Sight. Am I right about that?
Yes. I'm really excited about Omen Sight. I've written for other video games, here and there, uncredited for various video game companies. But Omen Sight was the first one that I was a blatant co-writer and in the credits and everything. Right. I mean, hail to ghostwriters, right? We work so hard, and it's very difficult when, you either do or do not see your work hit the green light stage. But yeah, Omen Sight was such a blast to write for because I immediately was sold on the idea, right? When I started talking to the co-founders of Spearhead Games, Malik and Atul, right? When I started talking to them, I love the idea that the main character did not speak. I love that we follow her as she listens to all of her companions and feed off of them and take action on their behalf or not on their behalf. And yet it's so riveting still. Like, how cool that you can hear all of the dialogue from how the companions are talking to you and reacting to your silence as the main hero, and then they have to guess or not guess how to deal with you. Like, it was just such a great idea to not prey on, but take advantage of the nuances of body language and assumptions and judgments. Like, how often do we, how hard is it to write in a novel, right? How we react in those little body language moments when it's so much easier to just have dialogue back and forth. So that was a really cool challenge with Omen Sight. And another cool challenge with writing Omen Sight was how succinct everything had to be. With novels, we really have the freedom to build up to those, climactic moments. But with video games, you have to build without any time. Like, it's so difficult, Bill. It's like, wait, you still want me to laugh or cry and I only have 250 characters? Like, come on.
Not just about words anymore.
Yes. Oh, it's like really having to cut to the chase and yet have riveting words that really, really portray what the character's trying to say in a really quick manner. Like, oh man, amazing.
Okay, I'm going to switch gears on you here, sort of, kind of.
Sure.
But you mentioned that you forewent traditional publishing for the Holder's Dominion. And we all know that means, like it or not, the writer's got to pay some attention to marketing. What have you done that works, and what have you done that not so much? Or one or the other or both, whatever you want to talk about.
Definitely. Yeah. This is such a great question for all writers at all levels. Like, if you're just thinking about writing, you haven't put anything to the page, I think this applies. And if you've written several novels, this applies. If you're published, this applies. Because as a person who works in entertainment, no matter if you're a photographer, writer, actor, whatever, this is so important. You have to have a finger, or I guess a whole hand, whatever you want to call it, in marketing. You have to be up to speed. So I would say, to really sum this up as quickly as I can, I would say that in the very beginning, invest in your property, invest in your goal. So what I mean by that is marketing. Part of the magic in marketing is having a very polished platform, a very polished piece to market. So it is very important to start out with even if you haven't had anything published, to have, a website, be on LinkedIn, be on Facebook, have a blog, because it's all very good to start with grassroots. And I did do that. I started a blog early on, way before I became a writer full time. I got on Twitter, I got on Facebook, even though I'm more of a attention makes me cringe and sweat and blush.
Really?
So it is. Yes, it is hard for me to get on social media and post, but I know it's important because it's that connection with your fans and with your kindred spirits. And I hold on to that, when I get shy or when I get anxious. And I do that for panels too, even though public speaking is terrifying for everyone. I hold on to the fact that we all are in the same boat and we need to help each other and learn from each other. So I would say this. Always be findable. So always be searchable. You must have your Google presence, if you will, no matter where you are in the process of writing or working in entertainment. Next, after you have something finished, that's another keyword, right? Finished.
Right.
Invest in that. And what I mean by that is hire professional editors, go to professional write meet and greet meetings. Make sure you get people's eyes on it that are professionals, and obviously do your research and talk to Bill and because Red Sneaker obviously is an awesome option because you don't want to get scammed. You don't want to go out there and just pay money to whomever. But I